In the tradition of Malcolm X, peace be unto you. I have said many times on this YouTube channel that I am not a pessimist. I do not choose to see or look at the worst case scenarios. I do not relish in them. On the other hand, I'm not an optimist. I will not spread false hope, because false hope is no hope. What I am, however, is I am not in denial about reality. And what I've tried to do for over 10 years is to give the people who listen to my channel a description of reality, not the false mythologies that are preached to you every day, but rather a reality check. Because most of the institutions in the United States are not telling African Americans the truth about their socioeconomic condition. Yes, you can find data, and after you find it, the question now is, can you analyze it? Can you do the math? Can you churn out the inferential conclusions that will help you understand that we are in an emergency situation as a group? As a group, this is an ER situation. We are literally on life support. And something must be done in light of that fact. We present some facts to you. That's where we can start. That's the reality check. If Native American-born descendants of slaves population in the United States is approximately 37,300,000, and remember that I subtract the immigrant population. I subtract about 11% from what you will see in official data. It is not accurate. It is not truthful. Because there are people who want to mislead you into thinking that there is growth in the African American population, when in fact, that is not the case. The truth is, the African American population is in steady decline and will continue to decline over the next 2 generations. Right now, the African American fertility rate is 1.6. That's 1.6 babies born per year to women between 15 and 45. And we know that the number of babies born to older women is less, especially in their 40s, far less than women in their 20s and 30s. 1.6, therefore, is far below the replacement level of 2.1. That is to say, a couple has 2 babies instead of 1, and that helps to keep the population stable. Now, when you get that 1.6 fertility rate, you divide it by 2, because it takes 2 people to make a baby. So when you divide it by 2, what you get is 0.80. That's 80%. Now, lastly, you subtract that 80% from 100, meaning 100%. That leaves you 0.20 or 20%. 20% of the population will be shaved off because of the 1.6 fertility rate. So the generation following the first generation will be 20% less people. That is a mathematical fact that cannot be ignored. Given that fact, every generation of African Americans will be 20% less than the previous one, the one before them. That's a shrinking population. That's a dying population of people. And it won't be because of food shortages necessarily. But there are many other factors, including the marriage rate, which has been on severe decline since the 1960s. As African Americans have adapted a Western European white Christian orientation to marriage. That is to say, they have ceased to believe in the functionality of family, the necessity for family, an established historical fact for over 300,000 years. Despite that fact, they have adapted birth control pills and they have adapted abortion. Over 23 million abortions since abortion was made legal in the African American community. African American women have aborted 23 million fetuses for lame excuses. Nevertheless, the sex drive is constant. And it has turned our communities into decadent groups of people who do not want the responsibility of sexual behavior, but who want the pleasure alone. Now, what that means mathematically is that between 2040 and 2050, the African American population in the United States will be far below 50% of what it is today. It will virtually disappear, cease to exist. And despite the vigilance of many of our brightest intellectuals, despite their warnings going back 50, 60 years, there has been an incredibly large number of African Americans who have remained functionally illiterate to such an extent that they could not heed the call of these brilliant thinkers, both men and women, warning you, warning us about the eugenical trap that we were walking into. It was set long ago. We became useless as laborers in the United States, and we were never, ever, ever invited to the table of higher education and higher vocational skills so that we could make the transition from an industrial-based society to what has become, unfortunately, a finance society and the sciences, as well as the vocational arts, because those arts were stopped. They were not continued in the middle schools and high schools throughout the United States. And so there we were, useless laborers with no skills and functionally illiterate, meaning that today, 76% of African American youth and adults are functionally illiterate. They can't read. They can't read well enough to get the message. And now time has run out. Time does run out. There is a stopwatch. And if you haven't crossed the line, if you haven't made the touchdown, if you haven't gotten a hit at 4 times at the plate, then you have no points. You have lost. You have lost the game. Many African Americans, going back to the 1950s, have chosen to pole dance their lives away. You see, it's not just what you commonly think or popularly think a pole dancer is. Human beings, men and women, all pole dance. They slide up and down the pole. They slide down the pole for erotic pleasure. They climb up the pole in an attempt to order their lives. They fail and slide down the pole again. Everybody has chosen to pole dance, and they have lingered at the bottom of the pole. And there is neurological science to support this metaphor that I'm using. If you study the basic parts of the human brain, there are 2 very important components. And if you draw a diagonal line connecting them, you will see what could be described as a pole. If you look at this picture, you'll see the red dot. That's the amygdala, or the limbic system. That is the seat of your feelings of anxiety and fear and pleasure. Your eroticism is seated there. It's live. It's a hot wire. It's always on, idling, somewhere between minimal and maximal. However, at the other end of that diagonal, that orange line, you'll see that orange arrow, you'll see, there's the higher functioning of the brain, the cognitive faculty, the frontal lobe, where we reason and we think and we figure out how to avoid danger mechanically, mathematically. Most people who are born, and I say most because there are some unique exceptions, most people who are born from childhood slide up and down that diagonal line. That's the pole. They pole dance. It's the struggle of life. Most of the time, however, the amygdala, the snake brain, causes most people to gravitate to it and linger because of the addiction to pleasure. That pleasure may manifest as alcoholism. That pleasure may manifest as sexual addiction. That pleasure may manifest in a variety of ways. And the marketplace in which we participate does not do anything to inhibit that. It wants it to be freely expressed because it's a marketable function of the brain. People make money on you pole dancing there at the amygdala level, the snake brain. That's the challenge that most African Americans have not won. Most African Americans are losers, and I'm not just saying that it's exclusive to African Americans. I'm talking about African Americans right now, so I'm not including everybody else. They have the same struggle. We're all human beings. But when you get a high percentage of a population who linger there at the amygdala level, it's like turning the brain off, turning the higher functions of the brain off. The cognitive skills drop, and consequently, you see your children cannot read. They can't read. And I'm not saying all children can't read, but probably your child is functionally illiterate, Don't be in denial. You got them watching TV all day. You've got their faces in their cell phones. You gave them a cell phone when they were 8 years old. You locked the television in their bedroom so you wouldn't have to be concerned about reading a story to them until they fell asleep. There's been absolute, unmitigated failure in the African American community. There are exceptions, and I have to continually say that because I don't want to overgeneralize. And then many of you who do want your children to read, teach them ridiculous mythology, ridiculous mythological lies. I don't care if it's about white Jesus or some ridiculous black God. You mess your children up because you program them to believe in cartoons, mythologies, or just outright lies, which ultimately enriches some very manipulative psychopaths who come in political form, who come in religious form. And they get rich living off your ignorance. That's the challenge that we have failed to adequately respond to. And as a consequence, we're going to pay for it. We are paying for it. The homelessness, the poverty, we cannot say is all due to us collectively, because we know about segregation, we know about redlining, we know about discrimination. But there's also choices that we've made that have not been in the best interest of ourselves. Let's face it, we cannot be in denial. So I'm not going to promote to you false optimism. A lot of guys are out there, a lot of women are out there talking that crap, giving you false hope. False hope is no hope. But I'm not a pessimist either, because I have to admit that deep down inside, above and beyond the amygdala and the cognitive faculty in the brain, there is a receptor. There is a receiver. We have a soul, but you have to be receptive to the frequency that is never turned off, that is always on, to receive the emanations of divine light. You can reject it if you want to. That doesn't make it not real. It's real. And eventually you will find out. But it could be too late.